to talk about the Amarna period. I am very excited because there's always fun things to talk about with the Amarna period. The two topics that I picked today are the sculptor's workshop, or the sculptor Tutmos, his workshop, and his and the models that are found in there. And then I also said we could talk about the Amarna letters. Those are the two things that I thought we could talk about today, which I'm excited about. So I'm trying to think of what the best source is. Let's first just go through the Wikipedia and just let's introduce who Tutmos is. We'll do that first. And then we'll get into more of the pieces, because I did find a pretty good resource that has almost all of the pieces I think that were found there. And then we can go to the Amarna period website and learn more about the actual site and stuff. So this is a discussion stream, so discuss, ask me questions, let's talk about stuff. So the person that we're going to be talking about today is named Tutmos. We luckily do know a little bit about him, either from his workshop itself or his tomb, which we are going to talk about as well. His tomb is not in Amarna, and that's especially why we're going to talk about it. I have not searched if we can find any pictures, but I'm going to see if we can find any pictures of it. I'm not 100% sure we will, but we're going to try. Tutmos, which you can see, technically the word Tutmos is actually spelled with a DJ. It's Jehudimos is literally how you say it. Because the beginning of their name is the god Thoth, which in Egyptian is Jehudi. So it's literally Jehudimos. So he was an ancient Egyptian sculptor during the Amarna period. He flourished around 1350 BCE, and it is thought, though I hate to say it, it is not really being exact, that he was an official court sculptor of the Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten. We do know that he did have a title, and he was the king's favorite and master of works. The king's favorite is a pretty cool title that I think even goes back to the Old Kingdom, where it's just literally it's so funny to me because I feel like anybody could say that they're the king's favorite and carve that into their tomb wall, but I feel like there must have been some sort of official way to be granted that title, which sounds weird, but I just know the Egyptians, and I feel like it takes them 20 years to build their tomb. They can't start carving in that they're the king's favorite that early on. That's not how that works, sort of. So the workshop was discovered by the German archaeological expedition in 1912. So this is pre the discovery of Tutankhamun, which essentially means that this is mostly pre good archaeology, to be honest. And it is also pre most modern Egyptians getting involved with the excavation process and with the selection of finds. Though I have heard a rumor, I'll be very interested to see if it's in any of these articles, that I've heard a rumor that when it comes to the bust of Nefertiti, the Germans may have completely consciously tried to scam the Egyptians into getting the bust and to getting it on in their turf, essentially, by showing them black and white photos of a not very good angle so that they couldn't see how beautiful and potentially precious this piece was. They didn't show it in person. Bye, Nat. Have a great time doing stuff. So it's very interesting that that is a possibility. But I've never really found any like more concrete source that that's true. So we'll be interested to see if we can find anything a little bit more concrete. So, what the thing about it is we know of Thutmose from other places, but we do know, as it says here, that the building of his workshop was identified based on an ivory horse blinker, meaning one of these things that covers the horse's eyes, that is found essentially within this area, and it was inscribed with his name and his job title. So that is not the best. It's not the best identification to really like tell us, yes, this was his house, this was his workshop, but knowing that he was a sculptor from other sources has helped and supported that. So what you can see here is that there were tons of pieces found in the sculptor's workshop. Many of these are plaster copies to study, plaster copies of like people's, not death masks, but life masks, along with the bust of Nefertiti. Nefertiti's is pretty much the only one that has any sort of color to it, any sort of additional portions to it, i.e. like the crown in this case. But a lot of them are mostly just casts. There are 22 plaster casts. We'll go over all of them, I believe. And they were found in rooms 18 and 19 of the studio, essentially with one in room 14. Many of these have been identified with members of the royal family, including Akhenaten, his other wife Kia, though that I hate to say is a little speculative. Potentially there are some of his late father, Amenhotep III, and maybe even some of Ai. There's a lot of different interesting ones kind of mixed together. And then we assume a lot of these are actual residents of Amarna. And there are a lot of older plaster casts of older women, which is really rare in Egyptian art and very, very cool. And so most of the pieces are at the Egyptian Museum in Berlin, and a lot of the pieces are also in Cairo, and there are some at the Met. So we will talk about his tomb a little bit more, but this is in comparison so much more recent. This is in 1996. Alain Zévy is a French Egyptologist. I actually met him. He has discovered some really cool tombs and written a lot of cool, interesting stuff about them. This one in this case is obviously the tomb of Thutmose, which he found in a Saqqara. He has also found the tomb of the nursemaid of Tutankhamun, Maya, which is another really cool site that we could talk about. I've been dying to make some videos about that one because it's really cool, because you actually see images of Tutankhamun as a child being sitting on the lap of his nursemaid, even though he's not really a child because he's still wearing the crown, like he still looks like a king, but he's smaller, and that he is seated at the lap of her, which you never would typically see. So essentially he found this rock-cut tomb of the quote-unquote head of the painters in the Palace of Truth, named Thutmose. And so although they're slightly different, these do appear to be the same person, and they appear to be different stages of this person's life. It possibly means that it's actually after the Amarna period. It's essentially after he has survived, and that he is still the head of painters. He's still like a high position, but he is buried over in Saqqara, which is very still far away from Thebes, so he may have still been employed by like Tutankhamun afterwards, but it's a little unclear as well. So let's actually go to this page. because I found this and I'm like, ooh, is this almost all of them? I think so. Sorry, I had to scroll down to the bottom. So this is a giant Flickr album of all of these by Hans Ollermann that has a ton of these plaster casts, and they probably, I think, repeat, but we'll look at them together. So, this just repeats the Wikipedia. So these are some of the Egyptologists that worked on this. So we have Henri James Simon. He bequeathed his collection to the Berlin Museum, and that includes the Nefertiti bust. There's a little bio of him as well. And there he is again. And then we got Ludwig Borchardt. He's a very famous German archaeologist. And then we have some of these pieces. Let's see if we can make this full screen. So this is probably the head of Akhenaten. Again, the long face, the big kind of pointy chin, big pouty lips, usually little lines around his nose, the kind of bulbous eyes, but they're also very long and almond shaped. And you can also see on there in profile, his neck just creens over. His head just kind of creens over there. And large ears, large nose, very pronounced eyebrows. But this is honestly a little, like, definitely he has these features, but they're not nearly as crazy as they are in others. But this is not a plaster cast. This is a sculpture. But presumably, if this person was the main sculptor of the Amarna period, he would have unlimited access to the king to observe him and take as accurate of, well, we'll say this, to take as accurate as the king would want. Because it is hard to, like, remind everyone that, like, royalty can depict how they want to be depicted. They can tell a person, they can tell an artist, they can pick an artist. Even nowadays, like, if you look at the British royal family and, like, in an interesting way, it's like how they portray themselves on social media, they are picking specific photos. That is the exact same thing in just a different way. But even in the case of, like, even the presidents, actually, the presidents of the United States, as well as the royal family, they get these professional portraits done. They are picking the artist, supposedly, or their people are picking the artist because they want the way that they want themselves depicted to be out there. They are not going to pick an artist that they don't agree with, or that they don't agree their art style because they think it'll be too controversial, blah, 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 etc. So it's all in a way of propaganda. Did Akhenaten, and a lot of people will think, well, Akhenaten just depicted himself realistically. But how do we know that? How do we know that he did not want to turn the spectrum to the other side? So, like, think of a spectrum of realistic is in the middle, then there is idealistic on one side, and then I don't even know what's on the other side. On the other side is imaginative. The other side is fantasy, something that looks totally different, but is not realistic, but is also not idealistic. Egyptians are usually on that idealistic side. They are really not going for realistic. But you also can't say that the Amarna period is realistic because you don't know. We don't know what realistic is. We don't know what they actually looked like. So you can't necessarily say, oh, well, this is what he looked like. You have to say, no, this is how he wanted himself to be portrayed. In my own personal opinion, I do believe that this is what he looked like or close. I do believe that he probably exaggerated some features. He probably changed some other things into whatever he thought was the most ideal face. But I do have a pretty, and this is not really on, like, based on a skeleton or anything like that. I think this is more based on just kind of the gut feeling. And you can see, like, these are just models. Like, these are not meant to be huge professional pieces. But they are still so quite beautiful. Now we have one, presumably, of Nefertiti. Hi, Nordino! How are you? Welcome to the stream. Today we are talking about the Amarna period. It is a particular time period in ancient Egyptian history where one pharaoh decided to say F them all and do his own thing. So we're specifically talking about the sculptor's workshop of Thutmose and the models of the royal family that were found in his workshop when the place was excavated. So welcome in. We're back to this one. So this one, so you can see here, this one is probably Akhenaten, and this one looks very, very close to Nefertiti. So we are very much, this is a separate, different model of the bust of Nefertiti. I also forgot to mention, the bust of Nefertiti is found in the sculptor's model. So this is, or in the sculptor's workshop. So a lot of these are basis of it. I am doing very good. I am a little bit tired, and I need a day off. Even though I literally just had a day off yesterday, I did so many things yesterday that didn't feel like a day off. So I need a day off, but my next day off is Wednesday. So I just gotta power through 2 days of filming content that is not for MelissainDeNile, because I have somehow gotten roped into filming short form content for my real job. Except I know how it happened, because I know that they know I do this content. So it's just a lot. It's just a lot. But I'm always happy to talk about the Amarna period. Amarna period's my favorite. So yeah, you can really see, and it's so strange because in some versions of when you look at Nefertiti, if you look at like her on like wall reliefs, she does have very similar features to Akhenaten. She has the typical like long chin, the puffy lips, the like all of these things that I mentioned before, Nefertiti does have, with the exception of a lot of these models and the bust of Nefertiti. The bust of Nefertiti is very much on that realistic scale. Like, it doesn't look exaggerated, but it doesn't necessarily look idealistic at all. So it is in that, yes, we can't 100% say that that is 100% realistic, but it looks the most realistic. Like, sometimes when you look at Akhenaten, like this, I feel like I could see a person who looked like that. There are some images of Akhenaten that I was like, that is not a real person. That is an alien. And we don't talk about aliens here, but he looks like an alien. So you can see them again. Like, this one still, it still is so close to realistic, but it just has all those features that you just notice that look a little odd. And these are all sculptor's models, so these are just him testing. The bust of Nefertiti was also probably just a test. It was probably not meant to be anything but that. Thank you, Millie with the sauce, for the likes on TikTok. Yeah, they're very intriguing. Okay, there's so many pictures of just this one. So then you get to these other sculptors' models, and these are made out of a much harder stone. Thank you so much, Millie. We're talking about the Amarna period today. We're also live on Twitch, so if you want to come over and see any of the images in a bigger scale. But I'm so glad. Specifically, we're talking about the sculptor's workshop that was found at Amarna, where the bust of Nefertiti was found, as well as the lots of these models that we're looking at. Now, this one I don't think has been identified 100% as Nefertiti. Hi, PyroKitties Tavern, welcome. I don't think it's been necessarily identified. Yeah, we're gonna talk about Amarna for literally weeks because we have so many things to cover. We're talking specifically about the sculptor's workshop of Thutmose. and the different models found within it. So we're kind of looking through them right now, and then we're gonna do some deeper dives and such. Yes, I know. So if you don't know what Silver said, the city itself was called Akhenaten. And I don't normally use that just because when people, if people hear me say that and they have any idea what I'm talking about, they'll be like, isn't his name Akhenaten? And I'm like, yes, but the city was called Akhenaten. I can't remember if I explained this last stream, but almost every single ancient Egyptian site has 2 to 3 names, and that is usually an ancient Egyptian name, no, this is a very good topic, Silver, because I don't know if I brought it up last week when we were talking about Amarna. They usually have an ancient Egyptian name, possibly a like Greek or Roman name, and then they usually have a modern Arabic name. So, in the case of Amarna, it only really has 2. Yes, very good, Pirate Kitty Tavern. I don't 100% know if this place has a Greek or Roman name, but it definitely has an ancient Egyptian name, and it definitely has a modern name. It also has a shortened modern name. So we have Akhenaten, which is the actual physical ancient Egyptian city that Akhenaten established. I don't think we have a Greek and Roman name, but this is the exception because the city did not exist during the Greek and Roman period, minus probably a very, very small village. The Arabic name is Tel El Amarna. Tel, in this case, means hill, I believe, in Arabic, but it also is used very commonly. It's very commonly used in both in Egypt and the Middle East to talk about an ancient site. And so Tel, I'm pretty sure, means hill, but I don't think it necessarily means that every place that is called Tel is a hill. I think it is more in reference to, in the ancient Near East, a lot of ancient cities were on a hill. Like and places in like Israel, a lot of those are on a hill, and so they would be called Tel El something. You would excavate the Tel. Like, that's how it kind of would work, because it was usually a hill or a mound because thousands and thousands of years had made it taller and taller, sort of. It's not 100% true, but I find that there are lots of places. There's Tel El Daba, Tel El Amarna. I'm trying to think of any other Tels. There's not many in Egypt, to be honest. I think those are the main 2 that I know of. Tel El Daba is of Varus, which is also half of Pyramesses, which is in the Delta, is Tel El Daba. I'm trying to think of any other ones. I can't think of any at the moment. Very cool. So Amarna has those 2 names. For example, Thebes is the Greek name, Luxor is the modern name, and I always forget the name for ancient Thebes. I always forget the name. Thebes, Egypt. It starts with a W, and I'm just blanking on it. Waset. Yes, good job, Pirate Kitty Tavern. I was thinking Wesir, and I was like, no, that's Osiris. Are there any ancient Egyptian names that use tautology, using the same word in 2 different languages? I don't know, because I'm really thinking of any, and I can't really think of any, because like even Khufu is Cheops, and Khafre is Kefren, and Menkaure was Menkios or something like that. And even there are certain pharaohs that we only know by, or we don't only know, but they are more popularly known by their Greek or Roman name. What's the one that I usually do? It's a Middle Kingdom pharaoh. It's not. Oh yeah. So Senwosret. Senwosret is sort of how it is said more in Greek and Roman, but it's Senuseret is how you say it. Yeah, that's very interesting, but I can't think of anything specifically where it does that. I'm sure there are, but I can't think of anything specifically at the moment. So you can see this one. This is made out of a much different stone. The other ones were more likely made out of like a plaster, which is why the chipping is like so bad. They did. That's a very good question, Freya. I think they did. What's that website that we were using? Pharaoh.se. Pharaoh.se has a whole list of all the pharaohs. So let's go and find a Ptolemaic pharaoh. Let's not do Cleopatra though, because we have looked at Cleopatra's before. 16th dynasty, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, 30th, Ptolemaic. Let's pick Ptolemy the 10th. Let's see. So he is Ptolemaeus Alexander. Whoa! Holy shit, that's a Horus name. Let's see if I can say that. Netjeri M Kedet Kanum En Su Hapu Anker Meshkenet Hunu Nefer Benner Merut Sekha En Su Mutef Her Neset Itef Tejma Ahui Kasuet Iti M Sekemef Mira Pesdef M Aket. Godlike in his mother's love, associated with the living Apis upon his birth, the perfect youth, pleasant in his popularity, who his mother placed upon the throne of his father, who is strong in strategy, who defeats foreign lands, who lights up the horizon with his conquering power like Ra. That's his Horus name. He did have also had a Nepti name, and he did have a Golden Horus name, and he did have a throne name, which, oh my god, that is so long! Iwa Necher Menekhet, or Menek en Etjeret Menket Sat Ra Setep en Ptah Ir Ma'at Re Senen Ankh en Amun. Heir of the potent god and the potent goddess, the daughter of Ra, chosen by Ptah, who has accomplished the Ma'at of Ra, the living likeness of Amun. That is a crazy throne name. And there's his birth name. So his birth name is, interestingly, it is still Ptolemaios or Ptolemus Jed NF. So like that is his birth name, but they have translated it into hieroglyphs. We went over Cleopatra's a couple weeks ago, but I'll show you. They're not as long. So yes, so the interesting thing is that he both has a Greek birth name, but it also appears that it probably was pronounced exactly the same as his Egyptian birth name, because it does say Ptolemus, which is his name. And it's also called Alexandrus, which is a little bit different, but yes, probably. It definitely is, like, the Horus name is not nearly as important as the throne name, but it definitely is important. Yeah, her one is very short. Weret Nebet Neferu Aket Seh. The great lady of perfection, excellent in counsel. Oh, I'm sorry. We didn't go through Cleopatra's. We went through Hatshepsut's. I apologize. I remember I made Hatshepsut's for a commission for somebody's tattoo. I forgot about that. So we haven't actually looked at Cleopatra's. Where it's Tut and Ita. She has actually 2 Horus names. Oh, interesting. She only has a Horus name and a birth name. I wonder why. I mean, I kind of understand why, but she doesn't actually have a throne name. So her birth name is Keliu Padra Netjeret Meret Ites, the goddess Cleopatra who is beloved of her father. But it's very, yeah, it's almost Cleopatra. Cleopatra is literally how they wrote it in Egyptian. So it makes me feel like that they've written it in Greek first and found the closest equivalent, because surprisingly, I'm very surprised by this. This is pretty much a phonetic translation, which is not how ancient Egyptian names work, but also we're now 300 years after actual Egyptians were ruling, if not more than 300 years. So that is very, very interesting. Kilu, which this is technically a K. Kilu Padra is literally how you say her name. But the way you say Cleopatra, that is Greek. Very interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize that. I've never looked at her name before. But yeah, so these pieces are very interesting. They're more likely made out of maybe sandstone. Oh! Go me! They are sandstone. I'm really surprised I got that. I'm not that good at identifying stones. Yeah. That's sandstone, all right. I thought for a second it was gonna be red granite, but... But you can see that they would draw the eyes, probably potentially where they were gonna carve further, but they just never did it. And they've left this little inset on the top so that you could potentially put something on top of it, like the crown. So here's another one. I wonder, this is quartzite. Yeah, I do like when it's in sandstone. It looks really nice. This is quartzite, which you don't typically see being carved out of. I wonder... No, not that one. I need the other one. No, not that one. I need the other one. I need this one. Is this quartzite? No, this is jasper. I forgot about this. This is by far one of my favorite pieces in the world. It does not look this good in person, as I unfortunately realized the last time I went to the Met. It is so dark, and I was really disappointed about it, and I talked about it in a TikTok video, and everyone was like, why are you so, disappointed? Like, it's just a freaking piece of art. And I was like, what do you mean? Yeah, I mean, this is obviously done in a light room, and it could have been lightened, but oh my god, it looks so bad when I saw it. This is also from the Amarna period. I don't know where this was found, though. Oh, it doesn't have any. It doesn't have any accession, any provenance details. Oh, purchased by Lord Carnarvon in Cairo. Yeah, so. Yeah, I wonder if I can really show you. I don't know if I have a photo of it, but I want to see if I maybe can find a photo on the internet of it actually being so as dark as it was. It actually kind of looks like this. So here, this is the weirdest thing. This is how I saw it, but I'm like, cause I saw it when it was on this, when I was at this exhibit, but it was, I think the light must have been out looking down at it because it was genuinely so dark. It was almost sort of like that, but even darker. I have a photo of, or I have a TikTok of it actually a while back. But no, I'm getting distracted. Where was I? Bad lighting in a museum should be a crime, especially the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which has so many things. We love William. Where I don't know if I've shown you my William. I found him at an estate sale and I spent way too much money on him. But he's literally like perfect. And he's unsigned or anything. You have this one? Do you know where it's from? I found this at an estate sale and I don't, like, it is completely unidentifiable. It has no markings. It is nothing. I have no idea if it's like an exact replica. I have no idea who made it. It is solid, like, yeah, mine has no stamp. And my mom, I showed this to my mom and she was like, I think this is homemade. I was like, this is not homemade. Like, nobody would directly copy this and then, cause like even this, there's small, like, he has small, like, marks. I don't know. It's a whole thing. Yes, the British Museum as well. Yeah, see, that's the thing is, I don't know where this is from. I feel like this is really, really old. Like an old copy of him maybe before they, like, stamped him. Because he has, like, a little hole, like, indicating that he was fired. Like, he's an actual, like, ceramic piece. He's hefty too. But I love him. I also have the stuffy up there as well. This is the hippo section. Hippos at the top. So there are a lot of options for who some of these ladies are. And many of them could be the daughters of Akhenaten. I know. Oh. Interesting. I gotta do some research to see if I can, like, figure out if this is, like, a really, really old version, like, from the Met. Because, like, the Met always has a good gift shop. It always has. So, So, this is one of the most interesting pieces. This is theorized to actually be, an image of Amenhotep III and not Akhenaten. I don't think I have that one. I have hippo, I have William's socks, I have a pin, I have a sticker, I have a little eraser that is at my desk at work. And I have the big stuffy, which I got the last time I was there. I also have a second, like, faience hippo that is not William itself. And I did make that ornament last year, which was cool. I actually feel like I got an ornament with him too. It's as big as a thimble? That's so upsetting. I'm so sorry. 10 pounds, man. So expensive. So expensive. So yeah, this is potentially one of the most interesting ones because, to be honest, there's only two options for why the sculptor would have an image of Amenhotep III, who is Akhenaten's father and who thus would be dead at least several years before Amarna was even built or settled. The two options that we have are that this sculptor was alive during the reign of Amenhotep III, and thus this is a more accurate image of Amenhotep III that he took from his likeness and or from his decision of how he wanted to be depicted. We always have to leave that up in the air. Or this is Akhenaten somehow describing what his father looks like to the sculptor. Scammers for a thimble. That is sacrilege. Absolutely sacrilege. So those are our two options. I think it is entirely likely that this sculptor lived during the reign of Amenhotep III, because there are potentially other people who, like, easily, if this person died when if they were 40 years old, if they died when they were 40, the Amarna period is only about 14 years long. And Tutankhamun's reign is best 5 or 6, maybe a little bit more. So that only gets you to 20 to 30 years. I want to see it, but I don't want to reveal my Discord. I want to see how small it is. Oh my goodness. It's so cute. It's so cute. That is a very cute little book. I've seen that book before. I'm surprised I don't have it. I really want it, but I do not have it. That's very cute. I want that book. That book is really cute. So I do think that this is very likely an actual picture, a semi-accurate image of what Amenhotep III may have looked like, which is really cool. Like, we don't have things like that. Like, this is a time period that not everything was accurate. Everything was idealistic. Also, I think, like, he does look older in this. His nose is really big. His chin's pretty chubby. Like, this looks like an older man. It's very, very intriguing. It's very intriguing because, like, I would understand that, like, this sculptor is just keeping all of his pieces and just bringing them with him to Amarna. But on the other hand, like, did Akhenaten come to the sculptor's workshop and did he see these images of his father? Like, what does he think? Like, what could have gone through his head? It's very intriguing. Ooh, what an interesting stone. What stone is this? Does not say, but it has, I guess it's some granite. Definitely. Oh god, they think it's Nefertiti. It honestly looks like Amarna to me. Yeah, it does look like a granite. It's a very spotted granite. Some of Egyptian granite's not that spotted, but they have this, like, section here so that you could obviously insert or put any sort of crown on top of them. But her ears, these ears are just sticking straight out. And to be honest, I can't tell. This says it's Nefertiti. The big nose and the bigger lips look more like Akhenaten to me. Yeah. I can see, like, it doesn't have the big chin that Akhenaten has. And also, Akhenaten sometimes has a crown that would, like, attach to him, but not as often. But I don't know. It's giving me more Akhenaten vibes than Nefertiti. But also, remember, Akhenaten's supposed to be this genderless kind of person in a lot of this art, so he should sort of look like Nefertiti a lot of times. Yeah, I think that might be Nefertiti. Here we go, another head of a princess, as we say. These ones are much more, like, you can tell that this is not Nefertiti, and it's not Akhenaten, but you can see the sort of family resemblance, sort of. Ah, now we get to the interesting ones. So these are these old, possibly actual plaster casts of people we don't know who they are. And it's totally unclear. Like, we'll never know who these people are, unfortunately, but they are usually quite old, which is so interesting. And you can really just see the wrinkles. Here's another one. This is potentially a princess, because it's very Amarna period. It very much looks like a lot of the princesses, but it also is not exactly. This is a great image. Look how beautiful this is. This is Akhenaten, absolutely. I cannot tell if this is two different stone. I think it might be, but I'm wondering why the color is so different. Here's Amenhotep again. Not Amarna period at all. Very different. There's that plaster model of a woman. This is the only one that seemingly has, like, she's got these big earrings and she has this hair. Not a lot of them have like a full piece like this. They are just gorgeous though. This is one of my favorite ones. This old lady. Because she just, I feel like I can see her. This is one of the ones that I look at and I'm like, this is probably like one of the most realistic ones because I feel like I can see her. I think it looks like, sorry, I'm sliding down in my chair. I think she looks like, what's her name? She looks like Madame Zeroni, if anybody knows that reference. She reminds me of Madame Zeroni, sitting on her front porch in the Holes movie. Which is, what's her, it's not a, is it Eartha Kitt? It's not Eartha Kitt, it's, is it Eartha Kitt? I think it's Eartha Kitt, yeah. She reminds me of Madame Zeroni. Madame Zeroni, you will take Madame Zeroni up the hill. But she's just so sweet looking. Whoop, I lost her. She's just so sweet, and you can really see that she's like a little bit of wrinkles. And again, these big earrings. That's Nefertiti. That, you can see that headband that looks like the crown. Here's another older woman. I think that's that same one. There's that same one again. Here's another one. Again, it's like they're not done in the Amarna style. They are just, there are small little elements, like the big lids and like the big wide noses and the lips, but also you can sort of like push those things aside and say, well, that's just what she looks like. Sort of. Like, that's just being realistic. Another old guy. And look, this one distinctly has, photos already, it's maximum size. This one has crow's feet that are, let me see if I can zoom in so you can really see them. That's as close as I can zoom in. Ah! Like somebody literally drew those on and scratched those into this plaster mold. Just amazing. There you go, you can see them. Just a little bit better there. Another one. But even the men and women look so similar, which is so interesting. Like the noses, they all look so similar. And yet here we go, then we get this one who's probably a princess. It says it's a portrait study of a woman, but like this is not like the other ones. This is absolutely closer to what I would say a statue of a princess. And that really, I think this really shows you guys what I was talking to you guys at the beginning about how Amarna art is not realistic. it is exaggerated. It is not idealist. It's idealistic for them. It is their version of idealistic, but in the case of like, it's exaggerated, it's wild, it's imaginative versus the exaggerated ways idealism is, where I'm just exaggerating myself to look what I perceive to be the best. And you can really see the differences between potentially what people were actually looking like and what the pharaoh wanted to depict people as, or depict himself as well. Because there are people, other people are drawn in the Amarna style, but not nearly as exaggerated as they are, as the royal family is. They are absolutely, by far, have the craziest looks. They do not give that to any old random person in the Amarna period style. I love this lady. She's like my favorite. There's another one. Fortunately not as great condition. Then we get to this one, which is very exaggerated, very Amarna period. Like the lips, the chin, the cheekbones, the almond-shaped eyes, the ears, the nose. Like, this is Amarna period. This is Akhenaten. And then also the drawn in pieces. And even like down the chin. Granted, these are probably not drawn in because they would be drawn in. They're probably drawn in because they're telling him you need to carve that out next, potentially. But like this is Akhenaten. This is actually not Akhenaten. I forgot about this. This is potentially which is also, he is a crazy this is one of the people that we potentially think was alive for like multiple pharaohs. Like multiple pharaohs. Potentially was around during the reign of Amenhotep III and then stuck around for the entire Amarna period. Stuck around for Tutankhamun's reign and then became pharaoh after that. Potentially, he is Nefertiti's dad? I gotta look that up. I gotta remember what that theory is. It's not really a cut and dry theory, but I think there's a theory that he was yeah. Potentially he is Nefertiti's father. Meaning, or that he is the son of, he could also be TA's, oh my god, it does look like Sid. He is also potentially TA's, who is Amenhotep III's wife, is potentially her brother. Yeah, it's a little confusing. There's a lot of confusing things with but this is him. Like, this is who we think this depicts. I don't know if we have 100% certainty of that, but we think this portrays him. Because he probably was a vizier or some sort of really high official during the Amarna period. Look at this lady. Look at this lady, man. I don't even know. They don't even know. But look at her. Another lady. This says it's a man. It could be a man. I'm not 100% sure. There's that Akhenaten again, who honestly looks more like Tutankhamun, but it's definitely Akhenaten. Again, the really exaggerated features. There we go, even more. Yes, I think I put it in the Discord. It is, I do want to, it's Yuya and Tuya. Or no, sorry, not Nefertiti's parents. I always forget. I always think that they're that. No, not Yuya and Tuya. TA's parents, Yuya and Tuya. I always get them confused with Nefertiti's parents. Oh my god, that hippo is so tiny! That hippo is so tiny. I think I put it in here, didn't I? Yeah, you put oh, sorry, you did put Nefertiti's parents' tomb. I'm now gonna reply to that and say, not Nefertiti, but TA, which is Yuya and Tuya's tomb. I always get that mixed up. I don't know why. I did, and then I did correct myself, but I still forget. I did say it was Nefertiti last time, but I tried to correct myself. I'm trying to see. It looks like we've probably seen all the rest of these. There's another one of Nefertiti. Here's a different one. Alright, let me go back. I just want to make sure this one has like a whole thing. Yeah, we saw this lady. I do love that this possibly could be TA. I don't think it is based on another image we have of what we think TA looks like, but it does sort of look like her. Honestly, that one looks closer to TA. But this could also be Kia. There's a lot of different theories about these. This is also discovered. Again, this shows a lot of the Amarna period stuff, mostly on the body side of it. That's probably Nefertiti. Although it doesn't look like her. It looks more like her daughters. But yeah, these are some of the different options. This is the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, or in Berlin. So this is the image we have of TA, which I don't think, this was found somewhere else. This was found in Medinat Gurab. And it was also reworked, which is very interesting. Okay. That doesn't give me much information. So here is a very interesting photo, as you see, of the discovery of the tummy pouch. Yes. The low-hanging belly, as we say. I do like it because it does sometimes make me feel nice, because I sort of have that, and so it does make me feel nice whenever I see that in art, when I see people that look like me. Oh, there's like a... Oh, this is great. Okay, we're gonna read this. Also, I have this book. But in English. It's up. It's right here. There's a big that yellow book. That's the book right there. Okay, we're gonna read this because this is very interesting. I don't 100% want to trust a lot of this stuff because it is coming from the German museum, but we're gonna read it and we're gonna see what happens. So, the bust of Nefertiti was found on the 6th of December, 1912, during the excavation of the Middle Egyptian site at Tel El Amarna. The excavation campaign was led by Egyptologist and architectural historian Ludwig Borchardt. In the course of the subsequent partage, or the division of finds, the bust was allocated to the German share. Again, I heard some weird rumors that it was sort of scammed to taken from it, but this is the time period where these things were divided, and that is why there are other models from Thutmose's workshop and other things that are in the Cairo Museum or in other Egyptian museums. There is an Amarna museum if you have the chance to get to Amarna. Tel Amarna is the Arabic name for the region, which was Akhet's Aten, which translates to horizon of the Aten. Okay, we're gonna scroll down here. Okay, so the winter of 1911 and 1912, Borchardt and his team began excavating at Tel El Amarna. They concentrated on the city itself, and by beginnings of the second campaign have already discovered several residential houses and villas. The ancient urban area had already been measured out in its entirety beforehand and had been divided into quadrants, which are referenced by scholars to this day. We talked about those quadrants last week. The middle city, the middle suburb, the southern suburb, the northern city, the northern palace, lots of those different ones. The numbering of the excavated homes logically followed the names of these grid squares so that the workshop complex was famous with the famous deposit of numerous plaster models, and the two royal busts were given the designation of P47.2. An inscription led to the complex being attributed to the sculptor Thutmose. On the day of the famous find, the excavation team had already suspected that they had discovered a sculptor's workshop in the complex in the area of P47.2. Since high-ranking noble guests from Saxony, current high royal ranking noble guests from Saxony had announced their intention to visit on the 6th of December 1912. After lunch, Borchardt left the supervision of the excavation to his colleague, Egyptologist Hermann Ranke. We love Ranke for certain reasons. One reason we love Ranke is that he created a massive tome called the Ranke Personanem, which is essentially like two massive books of ancient Egyptian names and what they mean and where you can find them. And so we really do like Ranke. Is it a very great paper and a very great database? No, but it is cool to be able to look up ancient Egyptian names and figure out how common they are based on the time period, obviously, that this guy lived, because now, since then, we have probably found countless other ones, but we do like Ranke. Ranke is cool. I didn't know he was involved in this, so I'm very happy. Borchardt's description of the day in the excavation diary reads as follows. At 12:30, scouts were sent out to inform us of the arrival of the Indiana of the Hamburg American line, of which Prince Johann Georg of Saxony with his wife and sister-in-law, along with Princess Mathilde of Saxony, will arrive. Borchardt dashes off to meet them. When he gets to the ship, he learns that the ladies and gentlemen have already headed inland. He dashes back. In the wadi, he receives a note from Ranke which informs him that something good is coming out. At the very same moment, the royal company arrives. Walk into the excavation house, walk to the excavation in house P27.2. Short description of the individual finds as follows, including the well-known entry regarding the bust of Nefertiti. During this find, the visitors are more excited than perhaps desirable. 4:15 off to the house, Senussi reports that he felt 3 more plaster heads and 1 granite foot. 4 guards placed at the site. Very good. Tea on the veranda. At sunset, the guests go to the steamboat, which by this point had almost reached Hag Kandil. 7:30, we all go to dinner in khaki. 9:30, back to the house diary. 12:40, go to bed after this dizzy day. What a great thing. And so here is this whole thing, but you also have this little tiny drawing of the bust of Nefertiti. I kind of want that as a tattoo. I think that would be a cool tattoo. Okay, so aside from this, there's another description, but it only appears 10 years later. So this really shows, unfortunately, the shortcomings of this excavation in which they are not recording things as they are found. The dig diary, as you could see, was more involved with the royal guests that were coming than actually what was being excavated that day. And these are the shortcomings of this time period, pretty much. But 10 years later, we have him writing, which, yes, could be very accurate, but doesn't necessarily mean it is. He writes, then just a short distance in front of the east wall, 0.2 meters from it, 0.3.5 meters from the north wall, in front of us at about knee height first, a skin-colored neck with painted red ribbons was laid bare. Above the neck, the lower portion of the bust appeared. Below it, the back of a queen's wig. It took some time, however, before the piece was completely freed from the rubble, because first a portrait head of the king found directly north of it had to be carefully retrieved. Only after that was the colorful bust lifted out and we had the most lifelike Egyptian work of art in our hands. Along with Borchards' note, the day of the find is also documented in photographs, which Prince Johann Georg of Saxony, an enthusiast amateur photographer, took during his visit to the excavations. The negatives from the prince's estate are now housed in the collection of the archives of the University of Friedberg. 3 of these photographs show the newly found bust of Nefertiti in the arms of Foreman, Mohammed, and Senussi. So here you go. You can see that. So you see the prince. I guess he is present there, and there's Ranka Hollander, and then Mohammed Al-Asusi. The first official photographs of the by then carefully cleaned bust were taken on the 23rd of December 1912 by photographer Paul Hollander in the excavation house. Given the circumstances under which they were created, these 7 glass plate photographs are very high quality. All right, this is going to be the most interesting part. I want to read about this. As was typical of all foreign excavations, toward the end of the excavation campaign, the obligatory partage took place in keeping with the legal status set forth by the Council of Antiquities. I know, they got the classic helmets, man. The Egyptologist and responsible excavator inspector Gustave Lefebvre, I've heard of this guy before, oversaw the partage, with the find divided up into equal parts, a moitié exacte, such that each party was allotted 7 groups of finds of comparable significance. Now, I want you guys to note that this guy, Gustave Lefebvre, is French. He is not Egyptian. He, at this time, which this is barely changing by like the 1920s, which is when Howard Carter and the Tutankhamun stuff was discovered. But at this time, all of the leaders of the Council of Antiquities at this time are going to be either French or English. Potentially German, but mostly French and English. So they're dividing the finds, and so at least in this case there is somebody who is trying to give the modern Egyptians agency, but he's not giving the modern Egyptian agency in claiming their own cultural heritage or their country's cultural heritage. He is still being this middleman who is just keeping it for his institution here in Egypt. It's not the same thing. It's not, he's not really doing this for the modern Egyptian people. He's doing this for essentially his company. The document of what was called the Procès Verbal du Partage, verbal proceedings of the division, was recorded by hand on the 20th of January 1913 by Gustave and countersigned by Ludwig. In his excavation diary, Borchardt writes that on the morning of the partage, photographs of all the finds were presented and an exact inspection of the finds carried out. Mr. Lefebvre comes around at 10 for the division. He greets us by saying that he has already heard about our lovely finds from Herr V. Bissing, who wrote to him about them. After Lefebvre has first taken some refreshment, the photographs of all the finds are presented to him, so that then he looks at the finds in the registrar's office, where the find journals are also made available to him. He examines objects of hard stone particularly thoroughly. Stele, the colorful queen, the statues and heads of the princesses, the queen, the king. Samples of smaller finds are also examined. For the Egyptian side, an altarpiece now known as the Stela of Akhenaten and his family was placed at the top of the list. On the German side, the bust of Nefertiti was listed in this position as an object of equal value. The official partage marked the end of the excavation campaign of 1912 to 1913, which was followed by one last campaign shortly before the outbreak of the First World War. By contract, all the finds allotted to the party from Berlin became property of James Simon, who, in an extraordinarily generous gesture, bequeathed all the finds from Amarna, including the bust of Nefertiti, to the Berlin Museum in 1920. We also want to figure out note that the Berlin Museum was heavily bombed in the World War II, and the building was almost entirely destroyed, but many of the things were saved. So I wonder if they wrote all of this really to kind of dissuade that rumor that I mentioned earlier, in which they conned they conned, quote unquote, the inspector by showing them a really bad photo of it. I think this is probably actually how it happened, because what I actually want to do, Stela of Akhenaten and his family is probably, I think I know, yeah, it's probably one of these. Where's this one? Is this one in 1912? So it's probably this one, which is in Cairo. Like, this is an absolutely beautiful piece. Absolutely. And it's pretty big, and it's in really good condition. So I could understand why they would put this at the same value as the bust. But also remember, a black and white photo of the bust is not going to be as beautiful as it is in real life. Like, hate to say it, even if this photo's not even that great. Okay, that's what I was already at. So there is what it looks like in the museum. Oh my god, is that it? Huh! I think that's what it looks like. Now it has like a prime location. This is what it looks like now. It's literally in this massive room, and you can't take a photo of it. Just so upsetting. Oh, she's just so pretty. I did hear that they looked for the other eye for a very long time, and they could not find it, which was unfortunate. There is a theory, which I'm surprised they didn't talk about in that article, that they thought that there was a theory that, which I don't know if we'll be able to find any accurate. Oh, so here's the other ones that are found in that area. Like, I don't know. She is missing an eye. Let's find a better photo. Let's get a close-up image. This is the actual Egyptian museum. Here she is. Yep. Which, like, the other thing is that this is barely an actual eye, and she's also missing a big chunk of her ears. And this also possibly is missing, like, the actual snake, but like, pretty much, yeah. It's not made, so the museum is not just an Egyptian museum, it's an ancient history museum. It's technically, I think, the Altez Museum is what it's called. But it is one of the main things, which is why it is now moved to that separate room. The museum mainly has this, it has some Greek and Roman stuff, and then it also has, what's it called? It has the treasures of Troy. She is so beautiful. But also, like, look at her wrinkles. Like, they're not big, but, like, just look at her wrinkles. And she has this, like, very stretched out neck. Do they have her back? Like, you can just see just the little wrinkles. Yeah, so she does have a glass eye. Yeah, and so the eye had popped out. Glass or, it might be crystal eye. Oh, yeah, the missing left eye. Here we go. Immediately after the bust was found, he ordered the search for the missing inlaid from the left eye. His initial publication in 1923, he notes, and in the left eye, the inlay was missing. The debris, even that which had already been removed, was immediately searched, and some of it sifted. A few more fragments of the ear were found, but not the eye inlay. Only much later did I realize that it never existed, is what he says. Critical discussion today. It was not present at the time of discovery any more than the gold leaf overlay from the bust of Akhenaten in the same room, or the missing uraeus. Yeah, this is another thing, another big one. Was this found at? So this is the other thing, is that no, it's so this is the thing. What this says: sculptor's model or finished artwork. There are so many people that think that this is just a sculptor's model, and I kind of agree with them. I agree. I think this is just a more finished sculptor's model than the other ones that we've looked at. Because of this. This is why I think this is still a sculptor's model. Because that's not Egyptian art. And I know that, like, this is a time period where all of, like, the art is challenging everything with the ancient Egyptians. But that is not Egyptian art. Egyptian art does not just stop like that. The only exception to this rule is, how do you spell mannequin? There we go. The only exception to that rule is this, which is Tutankhamun's mannequin. And I argue that I don't even know if it's a mannequin either. But people have talked about this being a mannequin because it literally is just, well, this is a fake one, and that's another fake one. But, like, it's just, he doesn't got anything else on him. Wow, that's a very fake one. What is going on? I just want the real one. Show me the real one. That's, like, the only other exception to this, I think. It's so hard. It's so hard, and she's just so pretty. So this bust was also found in that same room, but it's broken. It was purposely probably broken. And there's possibility of gold leaf, which I didn't realize. And that the uraeus was inserted and would have been made out of precious metals.
Every core computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.
I didn't even realize that. Yeah. Alright. Where was I? Okay. What time is it? 10:04? Okay. Let's briefly look at the actual, like, location a little bit, and then maybe we'll start on the Amarna letters. I found this article. I'm not sure how great this is going to be, but it had some cool images. So it's at the far end of the southern suburb of Akhenaten's, of Akhetaten. And I can probably find these images better. So this is potentially what it looked like. So you have the home portion in the gray. You have a workshop over here. You have horse stalls over here. You got a well, potentially apprentice quarters, and then some granaries. So the workshop portion over here is where a lot of these were found. And it's a very, very elaborate complex. Like, the front entrance is there. It has like a front courtyard and it has a back garden potentially. Like, it is a very, very fancy house. And they probably were 2 stories. He's got a lot of side parts to it. Alright, this is the actual Amarna website. this is the Amarna project. If you've never been to the Amarna project, you have to go to it. It's a great little website. So this is, we'll go to the home page just so you see what it is. This has so much information on it, and I don't think people like know about it. You can literally, like, there's so much stuff. 40 years of archaeology in 2017 via the Amarna project. It tells you, how do you get to the site? How do you go? Getting there once you are there. Then you can look through the palace and it will give you all of these different things. So we're looking at, well, I'll go briefly back. There's a model of the city, which is like, this more is just telling you kind of how it was made, but it's massive. I don't know where it's at, but yeah, this is a massive model of the city. Oh, it's an interactive map. Oh yeah, so here's portions of the city. And I think it's technically interactive, so I think I can... maybe. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so it takes you to where you want to see it. Our research, they have so many articles on here from environmental history, excavation, faunal, human remains, material, culture, survey. A lot of them do have, if they don't have the actual articles, like they might just have the citations for it, but they do have a ton of stuff. Recent excavation, House of Renefer, South Tombs. There's just so much stuff here. Preservation, restoring it to kind of look a little bit better. Publications, visitor center, and everything. So we're gonna go to Amarna, the place. Then we're going to go to main city and south suburb. And so this is literally what it freaking looks like in 1932. There's so little that has been preserved with this site. It is so barren, unfortunately. So you have the North City, the North Palace, the North Suburb. Oh no, that's the same image. And then you get the main city. But the excavation is showing relatively good stuff. Unfortunately, the thing is, a lot of the main houses, so a lot of the main buildings and the palaces were built out of really good quality limestone. But many of the subsequent portions of the buildings and the city were built with really low quality materials, then plastered and painted white so that it looked like high quality materials. And those don't preserve well. And also, this site was only occupied for so little time. So you can see like an unexcavated house mound. Like, we know there's a house underneath there, but it's unexcavated. There are pretty well documented streets and stuff in the city. And what it appears, I kind of mentioned this last time, is that the larger officials' houses were built along the main thoroughfares, and then different others in poorer communities and lower class communities were just building their houses in between all of these to kind of just fit space. So this is a lovely house. Is an example of one of the larger houses built by Akhenaten's chief officials. The modern fence runs close to the line of the enclosing walls of the grounds of the house. So this is a lovely little house and the grounds kind of surrounding it. This is the area of the house of the sculptor of Thutmose. Is the larger one in the distance. This is his house. And you can see it here. This is the house portion. So if you remember that thing, this line, this is the building, and then this long thing right here, that's his workshop. These are subsequent other little buildings. There's a well here, and then his granaries are here, and he has some sort of like horse shed in the back. Mm-hmm. Here you can see this smaller house has like a single column to support the roof, and then this little like slab in here. A bathroom in one of the smaller houses. Interesting. Huh. Very, very interesting. I gotta look up what lustration means. What does lustration mean? I don't think that's what lustration means in this sense. I don't think that's what lustration. A lustration slab? Must be it must mean purification slab or something. Alright, let's... Any last questions about the sculptor models or about any of the images that we've talked about before? We're gonna have plenty of time to talk about other things in the Amarna period and such, but we might take like the last 15 minutes or so. Downloadable resources, this is a very good part. They have issues, they also have guidebooks, they have lots of reports. I'm surprised they don't, unfortunately, have an in memoriam. I don't think this website has been updated in a while, which is unfortunate because, unfortunately, the leader of the whole thing has passed away. Yeah. So I don't think this has been updated for a while, which makes me sad. Very good question. Let's see. Overview. I don't know. I'm gonna assume limestone, but it could also be plaster, which I have to check. Is it under the bust? Oh, I love that. Borchardt first repeats the later famous entry in his diary, "Description is useless, must be seen." Oh, here we go. The core of the bust consists of limestone, over which a layer of stucco varying in thickness was applied for the final modeling. The consistency of the limestone as well as the thickness and the layer-by-layer application of the stucco were documented in CT scans produced in 2006 in collaboration with the Imaging Science Institute Charité Siemens. These new scans provide several details not seen by previous images generated in 1982. The painting is natural pigments, including red ochre, yellow orpiment, green frit, and carbon black, as well as artificially produced Egyptian blue, applied in the variety of shades to create the queen's skin tone, for example. Multi-layered application of the paint was documented by the highest level of accuracy in contact-free tests carried out by the Rathgen Forschungslabor of the Staatlich Museum zu Berlin in 2009. Yes, sorry, this isn't the Altes Museum. This is the Staatlich Museum. Almost symmetry of a facial structure to the extreme delicate individual hairs of the eyebrows applied in a cross-hatched line. This is interesting. It was also notable, however, that the utmost attention was paid to attaining perfection in the face, while the collar was given more superficial treatment. The iris and pupil of the right eye were made out of beeswax dyed black, covered with a thin piece of polished rock crystal as a cornea. So it is rock crystal, which was very common. Rock crystal was usually used for eyes. Yes, so it is modeled, not just carved. Which technically most Egyptian statues would have been stuccoed or plastered and then painted. Just like how like Greek and Roman statues were typically painted as well. A lot of them would have been plastered and then painted, and a lot of the times it's just fallen away. Real TNT. Hi, St. Dorrance, how are you doing? Oh my god. Y'all. Oh, listen to this. The CT scans indicate that the bust is extremely fragile. There are air pockets between the limestone core and the applied stucco, which have been identified as highly vulnerable points. Portions of the painted decoration are also extremely fragile, and the inlay is considered highly sensitive. It has been classified as non-transportable. That's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Non-transportable. All right. Any other questions about the workshop? Closing all my tabs. Aren't you happy with me? I was trying to look up the Amarna letters, but I couldn't find. I was struggling to find some translations of the Amarna letters, but I found some stuff. Yoink. Should laminate it. So, briefly we'll talk about these, and if I can find any actual translations of them, we can read them next time we do this. But this is one of the best ways. Oh god, I didn't even think about that. Holy shit, Ruben Goodbeards. Why didn't I think about that? What assholes? What assholes? Oh my god, I didn't even think about that. Oh my god, that is very convenient. Hate to say it though, they could never do that with the Rosetta Stone. They could never do that with the Rosetta Stone. That thing is a solid chunk of rock. That's very wild. I didn't even think about that. Wow. I mean, I'm sure it is, but there's so many things that are very fragile that people have transported and it's being perfectly fine. And I'm sure if that thing ever gets returned, it will have all the money in the world to make it as stable as possible to bring it to Egypt. But, wow. What an asshole move, man. What assholes. Baha, I'd love to see you try. It'd be great. Alright, so transitioning over to the Amarna letters. While the workshop is like one of the best, like, essentially caches from this city of art, we can say, and of how depicting life in this time period pictorially, this is the exact same thing but in writing. These are insane how important these are, and how also they're not what you expect. So if you didn't know, the Amarna letters are all written in cuneiform, and they are all on cuneiform tablets. They are not written in Egyptian. They are not written on papyrus. They are written in cuneiform, which is why they have survived so well. If these were on papyrus, these would not have survived nearly as nearly at all, pretty much. Because essentially these were found like totally buried in a giant pile in a room. So, like the reason these are in good shape is because of that. Sorry, I didn't look at that map before. So these are all the different little tablets. It can also be referred to as the Amarna correspondence or the Amarna tablets. And these are essentially an archive written on clay tablets, and it is primarily consisting of diplomatic correspondence between the Egyptians and their representatives in other places, usually in Cana or Amaru, in the Near East, essentially. No, but it was totally wrong for them to use it on a coffin. But no, they weren't totally wrong, because yes, cuneiform did exist in Egypt, but no. Oh my god. That's very funny. They're not wrong. It's not like a total, like, huge, like, this didn't even exist at the same time. It's not that. It's just that they never put cuneiform on a coffin. Because to be honest, it looks like those coffins in Forewarned, they look like they used a cuneiform tablet overlay on top of a coffin, which is not at all what it is. Cuneiform is always written so small, it just looks stupid on like a big ass coffin. So it spans a period of no more than 30 years in the middle of the 14th century BCE, around the 18th dynasty and such. Oh, absolutely. I understand completely why they did it, but it also is like not true. These are letters going in between an area in that did use cuneiform to the Egyptians. So this is truly because these are letters that would be sent back and forth between these areas, and obviously it means that there was somebody in Egypt who knew how to read cuneiform, who then could translate them and give them to other people. So as it says, they're unusual because they are written not in an ancient Egyptian language, but in cuneiform, which is it's a writing system. I always say it's a language. It is not a language. It's a writing system. Mostly they are Akkadian, and some of them are Canaanite Akkadian, but mostly of them are actually, the actual language is Akkadian. There is actually one that is in Haran, which is Kurites, northern Mesopotamia, and is the longest continuous text known to survive in that language. It is for Egypt, these are important, but these are also extremely important pieces of information from all of those regions during this time period. So 382 letters and fragments. 350 are letters, and the rest are literary texts or school texts. So many of these are letters. Like, we don't get those. Ancient Egyptian texts they're mostly religious or funerary, and then you get some literary texts, you get some medical texts, you get some mathematical texts. You do not get letters. Like, letters are so uncommon. This essentially proves that letters even existed. If that, I don't know many other letters. I don't think there really are any other letters besides these ones. None. No, I have absolutely no idea. I don't believe any of these have anything to do with copper. But I just love how what's-his-name has now become such a meme. I did my whole TikTok about the copper found in Giza. All of the comments are about the copper merchant. Oh, a Norwegian name with a Z. Yes, here we go. So of all of these, 358 have been published by this Assyriologist. So again, an Egyptologist cannot publish these unless they also know cuneiform. So Assyriologists have to publish these, pretty much. So these came out in 1907, 1915, and they remain the standard edition. No one has really kind of backed off of this. The texts of the remaining 24 of complete or fragmentary have been excavated since this guy have also been made available. Only 26 of the known tablets and fragments were found in their archaeological context. This is so important. This last line, guys. This last line is so goddamn important. It's so goddamn important. It's so upsetting. Only 26 of the 382 known tablets were found in their archaeological context in building Q42.2.1. This is so frustrating because this is just, it's so this time period, but context is so important. It's so important. And that is so little. I thought that was at least a little bit more, but that's so little. Finding them in the actual place that they are found rather than purchasing them off of the black market or off of the antiquities market at that time, it's just ridiculous. Ugh. It loses so much value to these pieces. Okay, so now let's go down to the letters. All right. They are primarily written in Akkadian, which is a regional language of diplomacy. I can't speak. Diplomacy for this period, which is why it's written in this. So they were first discovered in 1887 by local Egyptians who secretly dug most of them out from the ruined city of Amarna and sold them on the antiquities market. So that is the main thing, is that the vast majority of these are just appearing out of nowhere. We believe most of them were originally stored in the ancient building that archaeologists have since called the Bureau of the Correspondence of the Pharaoh. Let's look at that briefly. So the Bureau of the Correspondence of the Pharaoh, this is what it looks like, what's left of it, was also known as a records office. Located in the central city of ancient Egypt, ancient Egyptian Amarna, and was probably a large complex of buildings, is located behind the king's house, which is the palace, and the small Aten temple. And this is probably where they got them. And the building did include bricks that were stamped with the words Bureau of Correspondence of the Pharaoh. So that's why we call it that. So after all these start appearing in 1887 on the black market, essentially the location eventually was determined and they were explored for more. The first archaeologist who successfully recovered many of these tablets was Flinders Petrie, who in 1891 and 1892 uncovered 21 of them. Emile Cassanuts, then director of the French Institute for Oriental Archaeology in Cairo, acquired 2 more in 1903. And then since Kuzan edition, some 24 more tablets or fragments have been found either in Egypt or identified in the collection of various museums. So again, what was that? 26. So 21 and then 2 more and then a couple extra were actually found in the context of that space, which is crazy. Actually batshit crazy. Because who knows? The other ones don't necessarily all have to be found there. They could have been found other places. And they could have told us so much more. Could have been an amazing archaeological site that nobody knew about. But some rando just started digging and taking stuff and then selling it. And not telling people where he found them. Okay. The initial group of letters recovered by local Egyptians have been scattered among museums in Germany, England, Egypt, France, Russia, and the United States. Either 202 or 203 tablets are at the Vor der Asiatics Museum in Berlin. I actually don't know if I went to that one, and I'm a little mad. Oh, I did go to this one. But it was mostly closed. This is the Pergamon Museum. It is in the basement of the south wing of the Pergamon and has one of the largest collections of southwestern Asian art. But why are the Amarna letters there? I don't know. Why? I have no idea. 99 are at the British Museum in London. 49 or 50 are at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, 7 at the Louvre, 3 at the Pushkin Museum in Moscow, and there is 1 in the collection of the Oriental Institute in Chicago. A few tablets are at the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford and the Royal Museum of Art and History in Brussels. So, the archive contains a wealth of information about cultures, kingdoms, events, and individuals in a period from which very few written sources survive. It includes correspondence from Akhenaten's reign, as well as his predecessor Amenhotep III, his dad. The tablet consists of over 300 diplomatic letters. The remainder are miscellaneous literature or educational materials. They shed a lot of light on the relations with Babylonia, Assyria, Syria, Canaan, Cyprus, as well as the Mitanni and the Hittites. And they have been very important in establishing both the history and the chronology of the period. Letters from the Babylonian king Kadashman-Enlil, or Enlil I, anchor the time frame of Akhenaten's reign to the mid-14th century BCE. They also contain the first mention of a Near Eastern group known as the Habaru, who have a very severe possibility of being Hebrews, the Hebrews, due to the similarity of their words and their geographic location. But there's a lot of debate on that, obviously. Other rulers involved in the letters include Tushratta of the Mitanni, Libau of Sechem, Abdi Heba of Jerusalem, and the quarrelsome king Rib-Hadda of Byblos, who in over 58 letters continuously pleads for Egyptian military help. Specifically, the letters include requests for military help in the north against Hittite invaders and in the south fight against the Habaru. Very interestingly, during the excavation in 1993, a small damaged clay cylinder, first thought to be a cylinder seal, was found. It is inscribed with Amarna cuneiform and held a letter which appears to be part of the Amarna correspondence. And it says specifically, "To Labaya, my lord, speak. Message of Taji to the king," or the pharaoh. "My lord, I have listened carefully to your missive to me." And then the rest of it is gone. Yes. Well, I was reading it. I was trying to read it off of the screen, and I realized I couldn't really see it, so I had to look at it. I had to look it on my other screen. Here we have... They are politically arranged in a rough counterclockwise fashion. 1 to 14 is Babylon, 15 to 16 is Assyria, 17 to 30 is Mitanni, 31 to 32 is Arzawa, 33 to 40 is Al-Ashia, 41 to 42 is Hatti, and 45 through 380 is Syrian, Lebanon, or Cana. Most of those are Syria. 45 to 67 Syria, 68 to 200. Most of these are like Lebanon. And then quite a few are also Canaan. Let's read this letter. So early in his reign, Akhenaten the pharaoh of Egypt had conflicts with Tushratta, king of Mitanni, who had courted favor with his father Amenhotep III against the Hittites. He complains in numerous letters that Akhenaten has sent him gold-plated statues rather than statues made of solid gold. The statues form part of the bride price that Tushratta received for letting his daughter Tedu-Kepa marry Amenhotep III and then later marry Akhenaten, which we do know Akhenaten had a couple foreign wives, and we know this mostly from these Amarna letters. So this is what the letter says. "I asked your father," and you also notice they have different names, like in Akkadian versus in Egyptian. So "I asked your father, Mimareya, for statues of solid cast gold, and your father said, 'Don't talk of giving statues just of solid cast gold. I will give you ones also made of lapis lazuli. I will give you 2 along with the statues, much additional gold and other goods beyond measure. every one of my messengers that were staying in Egypt saw the gold for the statues with their own eyes. But my brother has not sent the solid gold statues that your father was going to send. You have sent plated ones of wood. Nor have you sent me the goods that your father was going to send me, but you have reduced them greatly. Yet there is nothing I know in which I have failed my brother. May my brother send me much gold. In my brother's country gold is as plentiful as dust. May my brother cause me no distress. May he send me much gold in order that my brother with the gold and many goods may honor me. So he's just complaining. And so this is a very long list of all of the Amarna letters. What I want to get to is one of my favorite letters, and I don't know... if I'll be able to find it on this list. I might just be able to find it somewhere else. Oh, we could go through this. This looks good. He did get them from Wish. Yeah, brother. A small number of the Amarna letters are in the class of poetry. An example is entitled Ships on Hold. They have like parallel phrases. Both sentences are identical, repetitive, with only one subject statement changing. This is a lot of standard phrases and quotations used only once. Some are parables. When an ant is pinched, does it not fight back and bite the hand of the man that struck it? Sound familiar? A bird in a cage is a whole section of... A brick may move from under its partner, still I will not move from under the feet of the king, my lord. For lack of a cultivator, my field is like a woman without a husband. I love that, actually. And I know that the king is hale like the sun in the sky. For his troops and his chariots in multitude all goes very well. I looked this way and I looked that way, and there was no light. Then I looked towards my king, my lord, and there was light. May the Lady of Gubala grant power to the king, my lord. A pot held in pledge 7 times and 7 times. I fall at the feet 7 times and 7 times, on the back and on my stomach. Okay, now what I want to do... We could read this letter, but I'm looking specifically for... I'm looking for one specific. I should have looked for this earlier because I don't know if I'll be able to find it. Now, I will say this. I'm not 100% sure that all of these... So, you know how sometimes, if you're a big letter writer, you now have like a huge like hoarding, essentially, of letters from your friends or in your family. But you do not have any letters that you send to those people. And suddenly it seems like you only have half of the conversation, especially if these are letters that you're like writing back and forth. And I notice this a lot because I suddenly like, I should have taken a picture of the letter that I wrote somebody because now I'm getting a reply and I don't remember what I wrote. There is a very high chance that a lot of these are half of them. That's why they're in cuneiform, that potentially they are our half of them, and then the Egyptians would have sent them the other half. Though there are some that say like this is Amenhotep to the Babylonian king and such. But okay, what I'm looking for is Okay, this is actually not what I was thinking of, but I thought this was an Amarna letter. It's not an Amarna letter, but it's similar to an Amarna letter, and so we are going to talk about it because it is still the Amarna period. Briefly, let's talk about Ankh-Sinamun. So any other questions about the Amarna letters? I think if I can find more translations of the Amarna letters, I would really like to go through them, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to. No, you can't. You can't toss away them. They just go into a room. I don't know. That is a very good question. Because these are kept like in a room of correspondence, in my mind, this is like you keep these on hand, and that potentially, I feel like in a place like a palace, you would probably have scribes who know different languages who would be able to write them down in papyrus in Egyptian so that they can actually get sent to the king and to his officials like that, because not all officials are going to be able to speak Akkadian or other languages. Like, that's the job of a scribe. And so potentially, like, you would probably dictate things. Like, there's a very high chance that a lot of pharaohs and a lot of royalty didn't know how to read or write. Or probably didn't know how to write. I feel like reading is sometimes more likely, but didn't know how to write. And so they would be dictating to scribes, and then the scribes would be then sending these out in whatever language it needs to be. Okay, this is the last thing we're going to talk about before I head to bed, because I do have an early morning tomorrow. All right, so, that is true. You can't, before they were fully fired, yes, you could change out the mistakes on clay tablets. Absolutely. Just smooth out the mistakes and continue on before it's hardened. Absolutely. So, if you don't know who Ankh-Sinamun is, besides the character in the original Mummy movies, Ankh-Sinamun is a daughter of Akhenaten. She is probably the third of 6 known daughters of Akhenaten and Nefertiti. She also is married to Tutankhamun and becomes the great royal wife of Tutankhamun. She was born right here, Ankh-Sen Pa'aten, and then later her name is changed to Ankh-Sinamun when they go back to the ways of the pre-Amarna period during the reign of Tutankhamun. Because again, if you didn't know that Tutankhamun was born Tut-Ankh-Aten, you learned something new today. So, she was probably a half-sister of Tutankhamun and was married to him as the great royal wife. There is also a possibility that she was married to her own father. Unclear. And there's also a theory that she was also married after Tutankhamun's death to his successor, Ai, who might be her maternal grandfather. Unclear. None of this is very clear, unfortunately. So, Okay. She has there are 3 eldest daughters, Mariaten, Mek-et-Aten, and Ankh-Sen and Paten, and they become like these senior princesses and such. There is potential that she might be the mother of some other people, but it's not very clear, unfortunately. Nope, she's not the mistress of Seti. So she becomes the wife of Tutankhamun. You can see her here on all of Tutankhamun's thing. Oh no! Not the right one! It's not... The thing is, there are both 2 impossibilities. We're not 100% sure she was married to him, and we're also not 100% sure that he was her granddad. That we have no idea if they're actually related. So that's a whole other side thing on that one. it's a lot of unknowns for this period because of how... This is kind of such the difficult part about the Amarna period, is that there are so many unknowns because it was so highly destroyed after it existed. But at the same time is that it is so highly studied, so there are so many theories. Like, so many theories that have very little backing, but it's just because a couple people 100 years ago thought it and published it, and now it still is floating around there. But then it's the circle of inevitable. Like, it just, because they've come up with this theory with okay things, and now eventually we're trying to look back at the evidence, and the evidence is not there, and so then we go around and we just continue to make these theories. And it just circles and circles and circles. Yeah, so it's so many theories, but so little proof. Exactly. And so that's why you get all of these theories where, like, she could possibly be married to, like, 3 different people who are all related to her in some way, and that either is true that she is all 3, or it's one of the 3, or it's none of the 3. Like, it's... Or 2 of the 3. Like, it could be any of those options. Those are all freaking possible. It's very confusing. And here are the little details as to why she might be married and stuff. Oh yeah, we need a time machine and a video camera. Absolutely. So one of the things, a blue glass ring of unknown provenance obtained in 1931 depicts the prenomen of I and the name of Ankh-Senamun enclosed in cartouches. This indicates that Ankh-Senamun married I shortly before she disappeared from history, although no monuments show her as a great royal wife to him. So literally, that theory that she potentially married that she was then married to essentially the successor of I is based on one ring of unknown provenance. We have no idea where that ring comes from. What did the 18th dynasty pharaoh say to his high priest after hitting it big at the gambling house? Oh, Chris. I feel like I should know this one. It's something about Tut. It's... Oh! Oh my god. I'm on a roll. I'm on a roll! Is so good. That is like one of the best jokes I've ever heard. Amarna roll. That's a great one, Chris. Welcome on in. We are just about to wrap up this, but we are talking about Ankh-Senamun. We're doing it all talking about Amarna, but we're talking about Ankh-Senamun specifically because I want to talk about a letter. Today we talked about the Thutmose Sculptors Workshop where the bust of Nefertiti was found. Dapper would be loving that. Yes, he would. He would absolutely be loving that joke. And then we talked about the Amarna letters, and then we're going to talk about a letter in just a second. It's not technically an Amarna letter, but I always get confused and think it's an Amarna letter, so we're going to talk about it anyway because it comes from the time period and it is a letter, but it's a little vague. So we're talking about Ankh-Senamun and how this time period there are so many theories, but there is so little proof, and it's just a constant cycle of people going back and forth with all their theories, and then there are no proof to back it up. So this is what I want to talk about. The Hittite letters. So I will tell you, because again, remember that no little proof? There's not 100% proof that this is Ankh-Senamun, but there is a lot of theories that it is. So let's read it. A document was found in the ancient Hittite capital of Hattusa, dating to the Amarna period. But again, we're not in Egypt, we're very far off. This document, part of the so-called deeds of, I've tried this name before, Supil, oh god, Supil ul Iuma the First, Supil ul Iuma the First, relates that him, while laying siege to Carchemish, received a letter from the Egyptian queen. You know that name? I love how you know that name, Silver. And this is what the letter reads. It is an unnamed Egyptian queen. My husband has died, and I have no son. They say about you that you have many sons. You might give me one of your sons to become my husband. I would not wish to take one of my subjects as a husband. I am afraid. This document is considered extraordinary, as Egyptians traditionally considered foreigners to be inferior. But he was amazed, and he exclaimed to his courtiers, "Nothing like this has happened to me in my entire life." He apparently sends an envoy to investigate, and eventually also sends one of his sons, Zanzanaza, but the prince dies en route, perhaps being murdered. Now, yes, this is a true story. The Egyptian. No, I did not know this. I think I went to school with that guy, Baha. Really? I love it. So, here's the kicker. The identity of the queen is unknown. It's not 100% sure. Her name in the Hittite annals is Dakam Unzu. I gotta read that. I didn't know. I haven't heard of that book before. So, Dakam Unzu is a transliteration of an Egyptian title for Tahemet Ensu, which means king's wife. So, it's not a name. While they call that her name, it's not a name. We know it is so close to the title of Takhmet Nesu, which means just king's wife. Now, the possible candidates for this, Nefertiti is technically a very good option because her husband did die, and Nefertiti herself did not have any sons, so it is a very close possibility. Merit Aten, who is one of the other daughters of Akhenaten, and then Ankh-Senamun. Ankh-Senamun is another option. So the thing with Ankh-Senamun is that she seems the most likely because there are no other royal candidates on the throne at the death of her husband, Tutankhamun, where Akhenaten apparently had at least 2 legitimate successors with Tutankhamun and possibly Semenkhare or Nefer-Ir Pa'aten. But this is based on the 27-year reign of the last 18th dynasty pharaoh Horemheb, who is now accepted to have a shorter reign of only 14 years. 6, Nefertiti was depicted as powerful as her husband in official monuments smiting Egyptian enemies. There, Nicholas Reeves, who is an Egyptologist, believes that Nefertiti might be the king's wife in the correspondence. That would make the subject deceased, the Egyptian king, appear to be Akhenaten rather than Tutankhamun. But he has potential heirs, but it's not the same. Other people focus on the phrase regarding marriage to one of my subjects, which is translated by some as servants, one of my servants, as a possible reference to the Grand Vizier Ai, or a secondary member of the Egyptian royal family, and however, Ankh-Senamun may have been pressured by Ai to legitimize his claim to the throne of Egypt by marrying him, which it is believed that she eventually did. So, very interesting. I always forget this is not an Amarna letter, that it's actually found in... It's almost the opposite of an Amarna letter. It's a letter from Egypt found elsewhere. But it is so interesting and so intriguing, and I want to know who wrote that letter. I really, really want to know who wrote that letter. It's just so interesting, and I can't believe we have something like that. Because to be honest, if you looked at the difference between the letter that we read between those kings, this letter is so honest. It's so just like... It's very funny that you say Steve did, because Steve is my brother's name. So I'm like, Steve did not do that. But Yeah, it's so interesting. It's one of my favorite things about the Amarna period and the Sculptor's Workshop, which we talked about earlier. Both of those are like just so intriguing, and you just want to know so much more about them. Any questions at all about the Amarna letters, about the Hittite letters? We still have quite a few things of the Amarna period listed in the Discord. You can go to discussion streams, discussion stream requests. We did the Amarna letters. I probably want to talk about the... Next week we'll probably talk about the Workman's Village and maybe the Boundary Stela. And there's plenty of other things. I know we want to do the Maro Aten and stuff. So there is a book. I can find a book, but I like that it's available, but I don't think it's online. I might go through a deep dive and see if there are other places that have translations of them. So when you go to their Wikipedia, it does appear some of the letters have their own individual Wikipedia page. Hi, Frankie. So like this one, which we didn't go over, we can talk about it next week. This one is Amarna EA letter 1. And it does appear to have a relatively long translation. And so when you go to this giant chart, like you can just see this has a pretty good section. Not every single one has one, but a lot of them do. A lot of them have stuff. Yeah, we're actually just wrapping up, unfortunately, Frankie, but definitely come back and watch the VOD. We might talk about the Amarna letters more next week. We'll probably talk about it more because I want to read. I wanted to read more of them, and I was disappointed by how I couldn't find a lot of the translations of them. I was actually surprised, and I think it's mostly because I'm looking in the wrong places because, again, these are written in Akkadian. They're not written in Egyptian. So these have to be translated by Assyriologists or Mesopotamian archaeologists or historians. So it's like I can't just find them. And unfortunately, the guy's Norwegian. Oh, wait a second. What's this? What is this? Oh, hello. This is on the Wayback Machine. I'm going to download this, but for anyone who wants to see it, this is not nearly all of them, but it's a Word document of a scan of a book that's like 20 pages. It has like E1 to E8. I think it was German. Yeah, I'm going to download this. I found that at the bottom of the references on Wikipedia. There's also a 2014 Google book. Interesting. What is this? This is... What book is this? El Amarna Correspondence to... This appears to have a lot of the pages. I don't know how many pages it has, but it appears to have a good amount. But yeah, always like don't knock Wikipedia until you really look into like the deeper resources, because you will find stuff. You will find good stuff. Especially if you look for the PDF symbol, you will find stuff. There's a lot of things actually listed here that have PDFs. Are they going to be in English? Probably not. Okay, here we go. I found it. Okay, so this is the actual book. It's on archive.org because it's so old. This is the Die El Amarna Taflen. The Amarna Tablets by Kunzan. but it is entirely in German. And it is 10,000 pages. Or no, sorry, 1,000 pages. Over 1,000 pages. So if you really want to go in, and if you can read German, go for it. But yeah, does it have? I wonder if it has images at the back. Oh my god, this couldn't be any harder. So this is this looks like the translation. Yeah, I think it's translation over here, or transliteration over here, and then translation over here. 10K pages would be a brick, but yeah, this looks like the book. Yeah, so, oh, and there's a guess what? There's a volume 2. That's only 624 pages. There is a volume 2, which I did know. So he did two volumes. But again, I just found these in the references section of the Amarna Letters Wikipedia page, and you just look and you're like, oh, what does this take me to? And you can just find a lot of stuff. Like this, I think, is that same book. Oh, look, this is 1992. Oh, look at that. That's that same book, the Amarna Letters, from 1992. Oh, limited preview. Oh, what a bummer. You can log in and borrow this because it's so recent. But yeah. 10 million hieroglyphs. Because I don't read German. I don't read German. I put it through Google Translate. That's how I read all of my German articles. All of my German articles, literally, I put them through Google Translate, or I took a photo of it with Google Translate and let it translate it for me so that I could get the gist of what I needed. I don't speak German. But yeah, always check the references in Wikipedia. They usually are pretty good. And Akkadian, yeah, exactly. I had to learn German and Akkadian to read that book. Like, that's a no. That's a no for me, dog. That's a no for me. But yeah, I think we'll talk about a couple of them. I'll try to see if I can find some more translations in English that we can talk about next week. But then we could talk about the border stele, because the border stele are interesting to read, and I think I can find translations for those.